Welcome to another episode of Bourbon and Rum. This is a podcast of two brothers from opposite ends of the spectrum. My name's Kent. I'm a rum drinker, and I'm from the left side of the aisle.
And I'm Kyle. I like bourbon, tend to be a little more conservative. Join us as we explore this experiment. Can two brothers from different sides of the political spectrum have a civil conversation and celebrate our differences?
We're getting an early start today, and therefore I am not drinking, but you apparently are. What are you drinking?
Well, like I said, I got a volleyball tournament this afternoon. I figure, well, there's nothing better to do at noon before the tournament. Down a couple of whiskeys. I mean, that seems like a logical thing to do. So, and just for our listeners, Kent and I have been texting back and forth about our subject matter for a bit. So I'm like, well, I need something strong. So I went back to the Old Forester single barrel. I got I've drank that on here before, but it's a single barrel Old Forester. It's barrel strength. It's usually somewhere between 125 and 135 proof. This one is 131 proof, I think. And yeah, it's pretty toasty, but very smooth, good caramel. I was actually talking to somebody, you can do a barrel pick of your own. And so for about, 10, 12 grand, I could get 150 bottles of this stuff, but, or 100, no, it'd be 15 grand, I think. Yeah. So
$100 a bottle, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that seems reasonable. I could go through 150 bottles and.
Do they bottle it for you at that price?
Yeah. Well, you pick out the barrel, like you can go to the distillery and you pick out the barrel, but then they have to sell it through a liquor store. So you can't buy it directly from the distillery. So you got, like, you go to one of your favorite liquor stores and say, hey, I want to do a barrel pick, and they set it up. A lot of times they said, sometimes you go to the distillery and pick, but sometimes they'll just send samples to the distillery and you try a few samples and say, yep, I want that one. And then they bottle it and send it to the liquor store.
Do you at least get the empty barrel?
You can get the empty barrel. Yeah.
I mean, 100 bottles of liquor, I don't know what your burn rate is these days.
Well, with the podcast, it's pretty consistent,
Yeah, except that it would be dull because every time we'd start, I'd be like, what are you drinking? You'd be like, same stuff.
Same shit, another day.
Well, we are getting an early start. We did have a text conversation and thought, we ought to strike while the iron's hot. And the iron for me is hot. I'm not going to lie. We were able to violate some of the rules in the text that we've imposed upon ourselves for the podcast. And so the F-bombs have flown. Yeah, I don't like to be super responsive to just the media and the news, but
it's a pretty significant event.
My going in position is this, and you can slap me down and change my mind. I think what I would call a pretty outrageous exchange in the White House was a bad look for America. And I say that because I don't believe it was like they were having a legitimate conversation and it all of a sudden went south. I 100%, you can call me the conspiracy theorist, I 100% think that the whole thing was scripted. They knew that they were going to put Zelenskyy on the spot. They were going to embarrass him. They were going to try to make him say what they knew that he would refuse to say. And Vance specifically and particularly picked a fight so they could have this blow up. And therefore, it's not just that it was an embarrassing episode because strong personalities disagree on things. It was a frickin' sham, and it was made up to look exactly the way it did. I think it's tacky. I think it's beneath the dignity of America, and I don't think it moves us closer to peace.
I guess I would start out by saying I love Ukraine, and I mean that. I've been there 4 times. I was thinking actually about it, not to inflate myself, but I was there to negotiate a business agreement. And one thing I did notice. Whenever we went there to negotiate, we'd always go to lunch and they'd whip out a bottle of vodka. So that could be part of the problem here. I'm just saying. But no, I love the place. I think it's horrible what Putin has done. I think the war is awful. And I would like nothing better than, for us to roll tanks through the Ukrainian eastern border and put away Russia for good. But I don't think, I like the outcome that would produce. I don't necessarily like the fact that thousands of Americans would die and question whether or not that's really in our best interest. So I'm not
I want to put a pin in that because I want to come back to that that very interchange.
But I guess where I'm going is I think it's awful the situation that it's in. But I also think that the current strategy has been ineffective. And I think where the Trump administration is going is actually a good path. I did not like the interchange in the White House. I don't have the same feeling that you do that it was scripted just because, like I said in the text string, I mean, it initially was pretty positive and it went south. I think in some of the things I've seen Rubio talk about after the fact is I think what part of this is some misaligned expectations because when he showed up, the expectation was what they'd been talking about the last 10 days is they were going to sign this agreement and everything was going to be rah rah. And then it turned into an argument. And look, these arguments happen, I'm sure, all the freaking time in diplomatic conversations. I'm not necessarily a fan of having 50 press people with cameras rolling while we have the conversation. I don't think that was particularly beneficial. And I'm with you. I don't think it's a good look. Whether you think Zelenskyy won the fight or whether you think Trump won the fight, it's like it's sausage making we don't really need to see in front of a camera. So
Right.
I'm not
I think
that
the Wall
much
Street
different
Journal
from you
said
in
it.
that standpoint.
Putin won that fight.
Well, I disagree, but I don't think it was a good look.
Yeah. So,
and if I may, Kent, before I get off the only other thing I'd say about the whole Putin thing, and we've been going back and forth on text. I think the guy's a son of a bitch. I have no love for the man, but I also understand that getting him to agree to things may require rhetoric that is nobody wants to use. That may be like, I think the gut instinct of anybody in America is like, you son of a bitch, we hate you. But if your intended goal is to get the guy to a negotiating table, maybe there's a psychological impact that you got to make him feel good about coming to the table. And anybody that says anything less than use scumbag to Putin is going to be viewed as, oh, you're appeasing the guy. I know that's where you're going to go, but I think and look, I could be completely wrong. Just like I've said in the election and everything else, maybe this goes completely south. Maybe this is complete nonsense and it doesn't work. But if you can get the guy to a negotiation table and you get an outcome that benefits all sides, I think a better outcome is better than rhetoric. That's my only.
well, okay. So that's a fair point. I think there is a big difference between not being inflammatory and saying to the country that was invaded, you shouldn't have started this. Like there's not provoking Putin and there's rewriting history in an insane way by a president of the United States. And I think it's off the rails. I really do. I get you that you want to have a negotiated settlement. I get that you can't be completely antagonistic to the guy. And it is true that there's nothing that Trump you know where I'm at with Trump. There's nothing he could say good morning and it would piss me off. So I mean, we know this, but you can't not discern the difference between avoiding confrontation or softening your language for the sake of negotiations and completely freaking disconnection from the basic facts of the experience. Russia invaded Ukraine. Ukraine did not start this war. That's not inflammatory, Kyle. That's facts.
I guess all I'm saying is I have a belief that they want to end this and they want to make a good negotiation. I can critique how they go about it and all the words, but I'm willing to wait and see what the results are. And I don't, I respect your position and I understand it. And honestly, I was thinking about the other day, I was talking to somebody and I was like, and we were like, why do people hate Trump so much? And everything he says just pisses them off so much. And I'm like, well, I mean, if Adam Schiff was the president of the United States, I'd be just like Kent. I would everything out of that guy's mouth, you son of a bitch. I can't stand anything you have to say. Now, we debate Adam Schiff. I'm just saying there are people.
Right.
He's somebody that makes your blood boil. There's people that make my blood boil. So I understand where you're coming from. I guess I'm saying I'm looking to see what the outcome is, and
Fair
I'm
enough.
okay with if there's some bumpy road along the way. I guess is my point. But and I may be hey, and again, I go in this eyes wide open. I'm not saying that I'm not going to stake my claim that he's going to be the most successful ever. Maybe he does some dumb shit, and I don't appreciate it, but I think it's worth a different take because I don't think the current approach is working.
So I do want to go back to what you said that, and I don't know if you're being serious or dramatic, that you would be supportive of a full on, I assume that you would mean not just a full on US backed, full into the conflict, but also NATO, right? Is that what you mean? And how serious are you about that?
Well, I mean, I think again, I think the world of Ukraine, I think the people have been through a nightmare, and I think Putin is a son of a bitch, and and to some extent, if we could just take him out, it may be a Ceausescu moment, but I like the outcome that produces, but like I'm not at the point where you brought up the John Stuart Mills quote, which is the what is it the I had to
War
memorize
is
it
an ugly
because
thing,
war is an ugly
not
thing,
the
but not the
ugliest.
ugliest things. The decayed and degraded state of moral and patriotic feelings that thinks nothing is worth war is much worse. Thank you for the prompt. I didn't read that. That's from memory, but there's a little cobwebs from college. I guess my thing is to say nothing is worth war. To say something is worth war is saying I'd be okay with talking to 100,000 sets of American parents and say, "I'm sorry, your son was killed in battle, taking out Russia, but he did it to defend the United States and advance our interests." I don't know that freeing Ukraine and rolling tanks to Moscow is worth 100,000 U.S. troops.
Okay. Yeah. It's interesting because I don't know that I would be willing for. I mean, if we decided that this was the place that we were going to have it out with Russia and we were going to put this to bed once and for all, I would probably be supportive of American participation in that. I wouldn't be supportive of American sole leadership in that. I do think that NATO stands a really big piece in this. And in some ways, I wish now, after yesterday, particularly, I wish Trump and dear God, Vance were the furthest away from this. Let NATO negotiate with Putin and with Zelensky.
Well, what have they been
And
doing for 3 years?
well, look, it's a problem. The other part about this that I can't get, I probably would not support to your point that I'm not interested in losing 100,000 American lives over this. But right now, we're just putting in money to help them. The Ukrainians are willing to take the fight. They just want to be backed. And I think it's a tragedy what's happening. It's tragedy on both sides. There's Russian families losing people. There's North Korean families losing their
Crazy.
kids now.
Right.
Uh, but that fact alone is an incredibly telling fact. Like, yeah, I'm for peace. I'm not for peace at the expense of all the other things. And what I hear, I'm not going to lie, sounds a lot like we're looking for peace in our time, said Neville Chamberlain when he landed the plane after he handed over Czechoslovakia to Germany. And we didn't think that that was the way it was. I want to call this out. We've talked about this, the Nazi thing. Call it overblown. I'm not talking about Trump, the Nazis, but I'm saying this, that every time somebody whips out that the Nazis equal the Holocaust and the concentration camps, believe me, there was a lot more going on before that. And we were at war with Germany long before we knew what was happening in the concentration camps. We had
Well,
concluded as a country that it was worth the fight to stop that kind of aggression within Europe because it threatens our security too. We said this was worth that fight, and we
okay.
don't now.
Okay. You brought up the concentration camps and the massacre of innocents. what is Putin? What is this war doing? The meat grinder in the east of Ukraine, every day, thousands of Ukrainians and Russians and North Koreans are dying, or God knows who else. The problem with this is like both angles are bad and don't work very well, right? Like they're both, I guess my point is like every option is not palatable. Like, okay, we keep sending money to your point. Yeah, we're not losing soldiers, but you can make the argument that we're sending billions of dollars in missiles and the meat grinder continues and just kills a bunch of people. Or you say, okay, we could go fix it by rolling in tanks, but then we're going to lose 100,000 of our own people. Or you go down a Trump path of let's try to negotiate, but that's really unpalatable as well because now, well, I want to suck up to this jackass. So it's like, I guess my point is, I don't know that any of the avenues are particularly palatable.
So I guess just to clarify, I think you made a little bit of a false choice there that I think is worth calling out. Honestly, I'm not interested in. I've said this, like a rational person could conclude your enemy's killing themselves, give them rope, right? Like Russia is every day, in addition to the humanitarian tragedy of those lost lives, Russia's ability to threaten the security of Poland, Belarus, Latvia is going down day by day. Every time this continues, their ability to do this kind of aggression again goes down. So, but I am in
Well,
favor of negotiating. I think the false choice here, though, is that preposterous display yesterday is the only way that you can get to a negotiated settlement. That's the part that I disagree with.
yeah.
I think your point on the minerals deal is a fair one. I think that legitimizes our interest there. It also is good for the Ukrainian people. It's good for our own national interest. Like there are ways around this.
Well, I don't think, and honestly, I don't think we're that different. I didn't like the display either. I don't necessarily think the conversation is a bad one, but I think that's a conversation you have in private. I mean, those are disagree. Like I
Or
said,
no,
I
I'm
mean, I
not
was
saying you shouldn't say that to somebody. You
yeah,
don't do that with the press corps assembled.
right. Yeah, I can get behind that. I mean,
Because it
and
looks
I don't think.
weak.
Well, I don't think it looks weak, but
It looks weak to be unable to call a spade with Putin. That looks weak to me. And you said you only got an hour for this. I don't know if I want to go down my path of Trump, the KGB agent, but yeah, I will stop at saying that it looks
well, but
weak.
I'm not gonna stop there because I don't think it looks weak. I think it looks. I mean, it looks like it's a major division, and it depends. You know, it's funny you say that because it's like anything. I mean, there's two sides to everything. If you look at the media chorus of, you know, I would say the left is it looks weak and it's a horrible thing for democracy. You look at the right, and the chorus is Trump stood up to Zelenskyy, who's trying to thwart a deal and doesn't want peace. So, I mean, I'm just saying, I don't
Exactly
think
how
that
many of those
there's.
people, you included, would have on Thursday said, here's what I think you ought to do. You ought to really stick Zelensky's nose in it.
Well, I think Zelenskyy should have signed the freaking deal because that was the best thing for him. And the
That's why he
fact,
was there.
yeah, he was there, and then he said, "I'm not signing the deal because there's not a security guarantee." That's the whole reason the deal was scuttled, is because he didn't want until he had a security guarantee. Well, then it's like now you're back to the whole freaking NATO clause, you know. So it's like, I mean,
Yeah.
I can't. My point is, I'm not that. We obviously disagree a lot. I don't want to sugarcoat that, but like, I didn't like the public display either. But I don't think I disagree with your premise, and it's fine.
That it was staged. You don't
Yeah,
agree that it was staged.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I do think it was staged. And of course there's a lot of other things that I believe probably without evidence, but because they make sense to my mind that I man, it
Well, and
just
again, okay, so talk the KGB thing, and I want to delve into that a little bit.
referenced an article, there've been books. These are not credible sources. Like I admit, it is in the same category as the Steele dossier. that I still kind of believe a little bit. And here's the reason I believe those. I don't think that I know or I have some plot of why it is. But Trump's toadying to Vladimir Putin before the Ukraine invasion, Helsinki in 2017 or whatever it was. I do not understand that. It's not even an issue based. Okay, so you could say in this case, well, it's because I really want a negotiated peace in Ukraine. Therefore, I'm willing to hold my nose and not say mean things about Vladimir Putin. But before Putin ever even looked at Ukraine, Trump was like it's astonishing to me how uncritical he is of one of the biggest SOBs in history and certainly on the world stage right now. Why would that be? You asked in our text, well, what's in it for them to have this love affair with Putin? I lay that question on the table, and I'm saying it might be because he's a mastermind of world history, has studied things from Alexander the Great on down, and has a comprehensive view of how working with the Russians and ingratiating himself to Putin could be good for humanity in the long run. Or it could be that he's afraid of him, or he admires him, or he just doesn't know any better, or they have something on him.
Or the other piece that you didn't add is an or he sees Putin as an adversary, as an alpha that he wants to compete with. And part of competing with him isn't saying a bunch of lofty words and then not meeting with him. No, he's going to engage him. His view is he's going to get the best of him, but how he's going to get the best of him is different than all the other leaders that approach this. It's like seeing the guy, it's a bit of like Sun Tzu of knowing your adversary, respecting your adversary, and it's the game of competing against the adversary. And there, with that, there comes a level of respect for him, not like, he thinks the guy's a great humanitarian, but like he's the guy that he has to go to blows with. And so I don't.
What's he, okay, in that worldview then, like if not to stop things like the frickin' invasion of Ukraine, like what is the game? What are you playing for with
Well,
Putin?
I mean,
He wasn't going to invade us.
He didn't invade Ukraine when Trump was president.
Yeah.
I'm just saying where
But
I'm
if they
going.
knew they had the fix in and they'd rigged this election in advance, then I get 2-for-1. I get to blame the damn Democrats for this, and I get whatever I want out of the deal.
Yeah. I think my biggest disagreement with you is that all the people that say mean things to Putin or say the right words in your estimation to Putin aren't really having any impact on Putin's behavior.
That's true. That's true. But I call out the false choice of saying you either get to say, you're a horrible person and be ineffective, or you get to say to the Ukrainians, you shouldn't have started this.
I'm just saying
there's a middle ground to that.
I'm just saying I'm not going to make my judgment until I see the outcome of this thing. And I think it's conceivable that a pathway to manipulate Putin might be by going down a path that many see as appeasing. And, the true definition of whether, Trump is in a KGB agent or a friend of Russia or what have you is the results that come out of this future negotiation. So I guess all I'm saying is I do understand it's unsightly not to be saying all the bad things about Putin that I certainly think about, but I also view that there may be another possible play where you manipulate the son of a bitch by playing his game a little bit. And
I
I
think
realize
that's what the
that's
British thought of Hitler in 1939. I think that's exactly what they thought. They thought they could outplay him. And the problem is that even in democracies that their institutions are as weakened as ours have become, in a democracy, you never have the kind of sway that an autocrat has. And so you might think that you're master negotiator, Trump, but you don't have the jack that a Putin does, because even as unaccountable as Trump has thus far been with his actions, Ultimately, there is an accountability in a democracy, and there is no accountability to Putin. So you really think that you outplayed a guy. This is exactly what happened in 1939. The British thought, oh, we want peace. We don't want anybody fighting in Europe. We're going to suck it up. You know, it's just it's just Czechoslovakia. Who cares about Czechoslovakia? Just suck it up. Just let Czechoslovakia slide. It'll be peaceful for everybody else. We played Hitler. We thought he was telling us all he wanted was, I got to have a homeland for my people. Fine, fine. We outsmarted Hitler and we gave him Czechoslovakia. And how did that work out? This is, in that sense, it's identical to that.
And we gave him Crimea, and nobody wants it back.
I think Crimea is different. And we talked about this in text. I do think it's different. And it's different because, a lot of these conflicts, like, who's a sovereign nation and where they've been. Like this is a constant thing in the world stage. Crimea was never going to last outside of Russia because Russia was never going to get by without a Black Sea port. Period. End of story. The rest of this,
but you make the point. Like, what the hell? I mean, then what the hell is some cornfield?
We didn't
in
think we
Ukraine?
Outsmarted Putin when we gave up Crimea. We just realized that was a fight that, short of nuclear war, was not going to be winnable. I think that's rational.
But why is this any different? That's what I don't get.
Because Trump thinks he's outsmarting Putin, because he thinks he's playing him, and you're not playing him.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying he's going to play him. All I'm saying is the current negotiation strategy with Putin has been an utter failure. Maybe another path works. It may not. If the end of
he
this
may not be the kind of person you can negotiate with, and the war is going to continue regardless of what we do, and we're just going to. It's how much do we capitulate?
Kent, at the end of this term, if it's a severely negative outcome, I'll agree with you. The experiment didn't work, but I would ask you to be at least intellectually fair enough to say that if another unconventional path works, that Trump isn't the bastard that you think he is. At least on that note.
I was going to say, I can't take him off the bastard hook across the board.
Some little notch of less bastardness.
I guess I will say, and this is going to sound a little bit like weaseling on. I think I would. I don't think I'm incapable of acknowledging that I was wrong on things. I guess what I would say to you, though, and this is part of the difference that I just pointed out, and the reason that Neville Chamberlain, that Woodrow Wilson, that I think in this case, Trump, they are fighting with one hand behind their back when you're negotiating with an autocrat. And one of the things is that you have elections. And so the issue is, I don't think the answer to whether this strategy worked will be resolved in 3.4 years till the next election.
Well, I guess what I'm saying,
even if we have a negotiated peace in Ukraine, that's not, I mean, that would be nice. That's not my objective. That's not my be all and end all. It would be great for war to stop and for people to quit dying. But there could be peace in Ukraine, and we could have screwed ourselves in terms of legitimacy and global authority, and that's not a win. So I think we need to be careful about defining what winning in this game is.
Well, I think part of the issue here is I feel like your comparison of Trump's position and make it like a Neville Chamber, like do nothing versus the other side is the full frontal invasion. That's not the choice here. It's Trump's different angle or the left's kind of half-ass support for Ukraine. Like, yeah, we'll keep funding them weapons. I mean, we're not going to send troops. We're not really going to end this thing. We're going to send weapons and money, but you know what I mean? Like, and we don't, I know Zelenskyy wants Crimea back. We don't support that. Like, we're only going to meeting Zelenskyy halfway. I mean, I guess that's my point is like, if the other side was like, no, F this, we're going to Moscow with tanks.
Right.
I could actually support that as a more honest position than like, well, Trump, you're giving in. Well, the other side is giving in too, because you're not doing this, or this. You know what I mean? It's not like as stark a difference.
No, I think you make a really valid point there, and I can't deny that. I don't want to send our troops, and I don't want to go try to win back Crimea, and I don't want to put, At the same time, the ongoing degradation of Moscow's warfighting ability in a way that does not in any way threaten the lives of our servicemen and women. Uh, you point out a really good point. There's a good dichotomy there because it is. I am kind of halfway in this, right? I am not. You know, 82nd Airborne. Let's go. I'm not. I am in favor of negotiating. It it's the and maybe what this boils down to is the same argument we have all the time. One of, I'll call it style. I think that the lackeyhood towards Putin is, I think that's shameful. And if you tell me that's the only way to get to negotiations, it still doesn't add up to me. Talk about your cognitive dissonance. Trump the genius figured out the way to cozy up to Putin to get exactly what the world wanted. Man, that doesn't really.
I don't think it's a genius move. Is my point though. It doesn't take a genius. I'm just saying it takes a different angle.
So, but why didn't anybody think of this before? Again, because I don't think it was an accident what happened in the White House. Maybe we just disagree on that. I think it was totally scripted. They planned this. They knew exactly. Vance knew exactly how Zelensky's going to respond if you try to put him in a corner like that.
They talked for 40 minutes with
right, and then the
pleasantries.
fix was in. They had the sign, and it was like, okay, at this point, then have you not prepped for meetings with hostile parties before, Kyle? This is how you do it. We plan out the meeting. Everybody's nice and happy. We're all clinking glasses, and everybody's good. And then we drop the hammer on them at the 40-minute mark.
Well, but that's my point. They dropped the hammer when they said we're not signing it without a security guarantee.
No, they dropped the hammer when Vance said, "You haven't said thank you enough." Anyway, we're not going to agree on that.
I'm agreeing with you in that I didn't like it, and I wish they would just do that in private. And I think it would be better for everyone. But then if they did it in private, you wouldn't have known what anybody said.
Well, right. I don't think I said this I've started a text down this path and then I edited it. Here's the thing. I think I was smarter than Joe Biden. And I think when Joe Biden did something I thought was stupid, I think I was right and he was wrong. I do. Call me an egotist. Like, I think I see things and I think that was dumb. This is smart. That was dumb. This is smart. Right? Like, and when I think I see something that's dumb, I think that I was right and he was wrong. And what I hear you saying, like, just baffles me that I do not think on Thursday you would have scripted. If you were the guy running the meeting prep on Thursday, you would not have said, all right, let's really try to piss him off. I don't think you would have done that. And now it happened.
It got pissed off when Zelenskyy doesn't want to sign the deal without a security guarantee, and he tells J.D. Vance that diplomacy doesn't work. I mean, the whole freaking crux of the mineral deal is diplomacy. Like, hey,
right.
And then it's like, well, diplomacy doesn't work. Well, look, you jackass. And
I think,
I wouldn't have done it I think as soon as it got a little bit negative, what they should have said is they said, hey, everybody out. We're going to talk. And then nobody would have seen anything. They could hash out wherever the hell they want to hash out. I do not like having the media sitting there, but
no, I think, and again, I don't think we'll agree. I think they wanted that. I think that's what this whole reality TV world that we live in is all about. That's exactly what they want.
It's possible that they knew, I don't know. But at the same time, I mean, it's funny to watch the body language of the other people in the room. I mean, Rubio, you see Rubio and the Ukrainian ambassador, like they did not expect that to be the outcome. I can guarantee you.
Well, when you plan for a meeting like that, you don't tell the guy that would probably try to soften the deal. If you'd have cut Rubio in under the scam where you'd already planned this in advance, then he would have said to the ambassador, listen, be prepared. It might get a little hot. So you keep Rubio in there.
Zelensky's not going to say he's going to pull the rug out from the mineral deal at the last minute over a security guarantee. That's never going to happen. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I really think, would anybody have bailed out Kuwait if it was just a sand parking lot? I mean, let's be real. I mean, the only reason anybody defended Kuwait is because of the $1 billion worth of oil sitting there.
Yeah.
I mean, and we hate to say that, but it's true. I mean, you got to generate some type of interest. And I think if we had some partnership that was making money in Ukraine, now you got a legitimate reason to go defend it. I think
Yeah.
part of the problem now is it's like, where's the motivation to spill blood to defend these republics in eastern Ukraine that all speak Russian and half the people are Russian to begin with? I mean,
Right. Right.
I don't know. I
Well,
can't. I don't. I hope you've heard me that I don't. I think you're very right on a lot of these subjects, and I'm not, you know, defending an ugly situation there. I didn't like it. I just think that there's another path that may work better, and I
well,
may
and
be
I
wrong.
will. Well, and I'll be on record that, to your point, if the result is the best outcome, first for our national security and second for world peace, I'm going to say that I believe that although I want world peace as a good, I'm not willing to have world peace at the sacrifice of our national sovereignty. So I kind of got my priorities there. It needs to be good for us and it needs to be good for world peace. And if that's the outcome we get, and that this whole charade was just the necessary step in getting there, I hope that I'll have the moral honesty to say that. I feel like this is yet another in a string. And that's the other thing. This, it doesn't happen without context for me. It's this perpetual, well, Trump's a disruptor. We got to throw a bomb at things. We got to hand grenade the place and blow it up because it's all broken. And I keep going back. I've said this. I know that it sounds like privileged and crazy and out of touch on my part. I don't understand what was so wrong with our country that we said that our institutions of government that have served us well for hundreds of years need to just be pissed on. I don't understand what was so wrong. Yeah, I said that we've had 80 years of peace. And if you live in eastern Ukraine, you don't feel that right now, and that's true. But even with the war in Ukraine, the order of the Western world that has been in place since World War II has on net been better than anybody else has put together for that kind of a period of time. And I don't feel a lot of impetus to blow that up.
I mean, I gotta disagree a little bit. I mean, the last 4 years have been a mess with wars, whether it be Ukraine, whether it be Israel. I mean, the last 80 years, yeah, we haven't had a major war in Europe. I mean, other than Bosnia and Croatia and Serbia and Kosovo. But I guess there's been a lot of American involvement in wars over the last 80 years that haven't produced a hell of a lot of positive outcomes, whether it's Afghanistan or Iraq or Vietnam or, Korea,
Well,
these
for what it's worth,
interventionist, go
yeah,
ahead.
but for what it's worth, I did choose my term carefully, and I mean in the West. I think that you're 100% right, and I think that when we get to the Middle East and to the Far East and Korea, Vietnam, I think that that's kind of a different story. I think that our interventionism has been less productive there, in part because we've tried to do it on our own and it hasn't played out. You know what I mean? Like I think there is a fundamental difference between the way you're right about the former Yugoslavia. I mean, I'm going to put an asterisk next to that one because I think if anybody could figure that out, like it's just a super complicated thing. I don't think you've had that kind of string of relative peace in Europe or Europe and far Western Asia. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
it just like I look at that and I say, do I? I'm not. It's not been perfect, but do I want to draw from the deck or do I want to say, let's make incremental change to the way the world stands right now, rather than saying we got to blow it up?
I just think what we saw in Trump's first term was we didn't have interventionists. We had relative peace for that period. I mean, the ISIS conflict went away. We didn't have the Iraq and Afghanistan winded down. I think he's got a track record of not wanting to be in interventionist wars, and I don't think that's occurred over the last 4 years. And I think it takes another approach. I mean, but I'm not an all-in guy on anybody. We're making predictions and picking who you think is going to do the best job, but yeah, he may screw it up. But I think on the average, what I'm seeing so far, I like.
Unsurprisingly, I disagree with. But again, I hope that I would have the backbone and the courage to acknowledge if I was wrong and if everything worked out rosy.
I just like having the conversation with you live. I know we text back. I mean, I do like the text, and I like The nice thing about text, I like the snarky back and forth a little bit. You can be a little more, we can be a little more snarky to each other because, it's just text. But
we could link a copy to the text transcript.
We might need some kind of X-rated disclaimer, but yeah.
Well, good. And thanks for humoring. I got to say, one of the things that I appreciate in this conversation, I don't expect you to agree with me when we go to everything. I think that objectively what happened yesterday in the White House was outside the normal. And I at least feel like, even if you don't disagree with me, I sense that you understand how, given my preconceived notion on the issues, you know that I hate Trump. Again, if the guy said good morning, I'd be pissed. But that was a bad display, and I don't think it. And I feel like you understand why, even if you don't agree, why I could find that completely reprehensible.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see that.
Which is different than just saying,
it's just another
"What
day.
Are you crazy? It was great. That was fine." That's the nuance that just, honestly, that's another podcast issue. But that's what scares me. That's the authoritarianism. That's when, like, I'm just happy to see. I'm fine with you willing to roll the dice on this strategy and see how it works, but just acknowledging that you're not just in love with everything. And
Yeah.
it scares me that I don't see more of that. I would like to see more people say, I'm a Republican. I think we ought to negotiate. I think that was wrong. But the tribal nature, you used to see more of that. Part of that's Trump's persona that,
Well,
if
but
you're
I
not
think
kissing my ass, I'm gonna primary you.
I think a lot of it is a lack of trust in other individuals. I have a lot of trust in you. I love you. You're my brother. I think the world of you. So, like, I feel a level of an ability to be vulnerable and tell you, like, yeah, I'm not crazy about everything. I mean, like, and again, like, our relationship's a hell of a lot more important than the asshole in Washington. Like those
Right.
people aren't as important to all this. But I think what happens in some conversations, if I don't trust you and I think you're just gonna, come at me with both barrels and try to humiliate me, well, I'm gonna get dug in and be like, no, you son of a bitch. It was perfect. It was a perfect meeting, and then
Right.
like, I feel
Right.
like if people had more of a relationship with each other, they wouldn't necessarily feel the need to go so dug in. Because I think it goes the other way too, right? Like if I come to you like, Kamala's horrible, blah blah blah. I don't know. That's what I like about this, because we have that. Like, we're not so dug in that.
Right.
And
I think that's the harder part. Like, the hard part is not representing the things that I believe and hold strongly. Right? Like, that's not the challenge in this. The challenge is being able to say, yeah, I think Kamala made this mistake and this mistake. I think Biden was wrong on this. I think, right,
yeah.
like those are the hard things to say. And instead, we're all conditioned, the right's conditioned to be like, oh, you dialed the clock back to 1939 and you're handing over Ukraine like
Well,
Chamberlain
it
handed over
becomes
Czechoslovakia. People are like, well, yeah, but Hunter Biden's laptop.
well,
Like, instead
it
of saying, like,
becomes like this. And I don't know. I hope our producer listens to this. We've got a friend that we want to bring on the show and talk, and this is kind of the dynamic I'd love to explore with this individual, because she was on television and she knows how people operate and react in situations. And it's like, what kind of thought process goes in somebody's mind that, like, I can't let the armor crack for a minute, because if I open the armor and I say to you, yeah, I thought that was a shit show on television yesterday, oh my gosh, then now it's all going to evaporate. I'm going to get crucified. You know what I mean? There's like
right.
there's a thing there, and I can't.
Well, and part of it is that when we're winning these days, we tend to play gotcha, which means that people want to protect the armor more, and it gets to this ridiculous thing where you have these things that are obvious insanity, right? Like, Joe Biden was obviously past the point where he should have been the president of the United States. But
He's
no,
fine.
I'm going to be like, well, I mean, Reagan was old. I mean, like, we like, we got to play those equivalencies rather than just like, okay, stipulated Biden was too old. He needed to get out of there. Should not have run for the second term. Like, period, end of story. Yeah. I don't know. Like, the inability to say those things is,
Right.
and I don't think that's partisan. I think that is social media, polarized media, news sources. It's all bundled with that.
Yeah.
We don't spend enough time with each other. And that is
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
statistic that we all live in bubbles, man. I live in a bubble here. It's a bubble that I chose. I like it. I like where I live. I like it that I can say things at work. Very seldom do I have to worry about getting crosswise with people around me.
Yeah.
That maybe is
Yeah.
not a good thing. Maybe I ought to worry about getting crosswise with people around me.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, I just think what's really encouraging to me is when I watch a show and I see people that should totally hate each other because they're from different walks and be able to have a conversation. I find that the most exciting thing. I saw a clip on, I don't watch television, but I watched a clip on YouTube of Sean Hannity and James Carville. And, they start out and Hannity's like, man, I love your strategy. Like they're complimenting each other, like they're friends. And then they get into like, you're dumb shit. And, they're going off on each other. But it's like, I like that kind of interchange. And I think, I don't want to be stepping ahead of ourselves, but everybody that's told me they like this podcast likes it for that reason.
Yeah. There's no such thing as winner take all in a democracy.
Yeah.
There's
Great
no
point.
such thing as winner take all. Believe me, even your most MAGA friends, I'm telling you, you do not want one party to have full. I'm the first to say it. I'd
Yeah.
be terrified of handing both parties of Congress and the White House to the Democrats and then have a packed Supreme Court. I'm terrified of that. And it should scare all of us. There is no winner take all in this. We all
The
lose
only
if that
correction
happens.
I'd make to that, Kent, is I think that would be a more lethal combination than a Republican Congress, presidency, and Supreme Court, because the Republican side has shown they can't do a hell of a lot, but the Democrats have shown they can. So I'd say it's more dangerous with Democrats.
Fair enough. All right. Well, you've got stuff to get to. So
Thank you,
all
Kent.
right. Hey, thanks for joining us on this episode of Bourbon and Rum Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Remember to subscribe on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us keep the good spirits flowing.
And we invite you to join this conversation. Follow us on our Facebook page. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you want to hear.
And until next time, cheers.